A mercenary, a ninja, and a street punk walk into a bar. Must be another beat 'em up game. I love a lot of what's going on in the indie gaming scene right now. Very little surprise as two of my favorite genres are beat 'em ups and Metroidvanias. Today we're going to be taking a look at a game on Steam Early Access called The Takeover. One look at this game and you can instantly tell that it is a tribute to Streets of Rage and Final Fight, but is it any good? Let's find out. Takeover is a 2.5D take on the classic beat 'em up style. It takes all your favorite brawler tropes and packages them in a colorful, shiny package. I'll get into the shininess later, but just like many of the classics in the game, we're talking about a game that's light on story and big on action. So let's jump right into the gameplay. If you've played Streets of Rage, you kinda know what to expect already, but the Takeover makes a few tweaks to the familiar formula of jump, kick, and special. For starters, they added a second attack button making for separate punch and kick, not unlike the controls of Double Dragon. This makes for some more variety, but sometimes that's not quite enough. Sometimes you need to resort to more than just your fists or your feet, and the Takeover has that covered too. As with any beat 'em up game, you will find some weapons. Here they're represented with a samurai sword and a comically large crowbar that is nearly as large as the playable characters. But that just might not be enough. That's when you have to break out the big guns. Literally. You may start the game with no bullets, but the playable characters are packing heat, each toting a unique firearm. Not just that, but along with the aforementioned swords and crowbars, you will sometimes come across an assault rifle. It's not quite as devastating as it may sound, except for during the one level that has the mutants, which you're probably seeing footage of now. Story, as limited as it is, goes something like this. Gangs are invading the city, everybody's crooked. Sounds familiar so far. Ethan, the one last honest cop in town, gets a call from his girlfriend Megan. Their adopted daughter has been kidnapped. Kidnapping and corruption. That's the basis to the plots of both Streets of Rage and Final Fight rolled into one. Anyway, the two enlist their friend Connor, a big, honking ex-military, basically the Mike Hagar or Max Thunder of the crew, and he joins the fight to help take down the bad guys. If you haven't already guessed, this game is just one big homage. Elements of Streets of Rage and Final Fight are strewn throughout, and maybe just a little bit more than a tip of the hat to Mortal Kombat is thrown in too. The game isn't just one derivative work. It does its own thing here and there. Most notably, there are a pair of bonus stages which deviate from the beat 'em up style. One being a driving section where you shoot up vans full of bad guys for more time, and the other is a flying section. If you lose in those sections, it has no ill effect on your game, but if you finish them, it will net you a 1-up, and that's pretty cool. When I first started playing the game, I noticed that the hit detection was a little bit different than other beat 'em ups, and the more I played, the more I realized that this was intentional. In this game, it can be super easy to juggle enemies in the air. Even well-timed firearm blasts will do it. It might seem a little bit weird at first, but it kind of grew on me. On a similar note, sometimes when you throw an enemy, it will connect with another for multiple hits in the air, potentially taking them out, and that is pretty darn cool too. Another thing you may have noticed from these clips is it's a little bit more violent than some of your other beat 'em up games, as you'll see blood literally spraying from the enemies and even pool on the ground as they've been defeated in some areas. If you pick up the machine gun in the stage with the mutants, you'll be mowing them down in very colorful ways with the spray of gunfire. As much as I'm enjoying talking about this so far, I will say that the visual style is something that isn't going to be everybody's cup of tea. Some of the character models have this shininess to them that I was alluding to in the beginning of the video. It's a bit reminiscent of early 3D games. I don't mind the look, but not unlike the comic book style panels of the cutscenes. It's kinda cheesy in a way, but I think it adds to the charm of this game. The audio in the game is fairly decent as well. There's a variety of rock and electronic tracks to the music. One of the latter was actually composed by a legend in the genre, Yuzo Koshiro. And when you hear the track, you know the one I'm referring to because it sounds so much like what he did in Streets of Rage. And the audio effects here are decent too, with earth-shaking slams and swishing of crowbars and swords. The gunfire and punches are all very satisfying to hear as well. The voice acting here is definitely not pro level, but it gets the job done. I feel as if there's a certain level of intentional cheesiness to the modern beat 'em up games. Back in the heyday of the genre, games like Captain Commando and Battle Circuit were all about how weird you can make the characters. There was a bit of wackiness to the character design design and other elements. This one here definitely takes a gritty approach, but there's still some over-the-top elements, the mechs, previously mentioned mutants, bits of the visual comic cutscenes. Heck, the female main character here, Megan, is really showing a lot of cleavage, and that's pretty over the top too. How she doesn't experience the wardrobe malfunction is beyond me. The over-the-top action might draw you in, but the game may need something more to keep you playing. Aside from the basic differences between your playable characters and difficulty settings, there's also a survival mode, which is basically how long you can last against an onslaught of thugs. Also, upon beating the game, there's an unlockable fourth character named Marshall. I have no idea really where he fits into the story. He doesn't even have any unique frames in the cutscenes, but he's got power and reach like Connor, but is more mobile and more fun to play as. Beating the game as Marshall will unlock one last feature called Relay Mode. In Relay Mode, you can rotate through the playable characters just with shared health. It's not a game changer, but it is a pretty neat touch. If you're not a fan of beat-em-up games, you've pretty much seen all this before. You might find the 2 bonus stages kinda cool and the visual design something different, but this game won't convince you to change your tune about this type of game. But if you are a fan, regardless of all the things you've seen before, a lot of which do happen to appear right in this game, I think you're gonna have yourself a pretty good time. As I mentioned early in the video, this game is still in early access on Steam, and it is supposed to come out for the PS4 and the Switch sometime in the future, but when, I have no idea. But when it does, this might be something you may want to look out for. Right now, as it sits, the game is still rather rough around the edges. It's actually been in development for quite some time from what I understand, and it's still a bit of a work in progress. But as it is, with warts and all, I think it's still pretty cool, and it's worth a look if you can buy it on Steam. Heck, you might like it. I did. So, check it out. I know I've been covering some indie stuff lately, and I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, and if you want to see me get back into more retro, I am definitely planning on a couple things in the near future, so keep tuned for that. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Take care.